Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Six Pack. Here, we're going to kick off the rookie 2025 season. So, we're talking about the 2025 draft class for rookies, and we're here to tell you the message: RBs do matter. We're starting with running backs today, so let's go with the intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Six Pack here on the Fantasy Six Pack Network, podcasts and videos. Wherever you're listening to us on podcast, you can subscribe there. Really appreciate that. Also on YouTube, you can do the same thing, as well as like the video, and you can even interact with us live. So check out the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. Also available on Facebook for the live interactions as well. One of my co-hosts already given the example of how to do so. But yes, with the most important part of the episode to mention, welcome back, Rahul. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, anonymous commenter, Jamie Perog. But no, it's great to be back, guys. Sad I couldn't be here with you the last 2 weeks, but I know both of you all held down the fort going over all the free agency news that we had in the last couple of weeks. And April quite certainly is real start of rookie season. I'm really excited to dive into these positional episodes we have started today and coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's rookie season here on the Dynasty Six Pack and in the Dynasty universe in general. So, Jamie Perog, how are you doing? And not just in the comments, but here on the video.
Man, you know me. This is my favorite time of the year. Love talking rookies. Like we're gonna break down these next wave of rookies just coming in. It's gonna make an impact in the NFL. Like from sleepers, we're gonna get future stars. So we're here today just to analyze all that.
Yes, and I'm Kyle Senra. Again, glad to be here with Rahul and Jamie. And we're going to talk about running backs. So honestly, let's get right to it because we've got a lot of players to talk about today. And Ashton Jeanty. I mean, we've already mentioned him, right? So I was going to have some big intro with some suspense or something, but why even bother? We already talked about him actually in episode 2, which was our top 2 tiers at each position. So it should be no surprise that Ashton Jeanty is the number 1 running back. And Rahul, as the returning host, glad to have you back. We've missed you so much. We want you to kick this off. Why is Ashton Jeanty your RB1 in this class?
Thank you for having me back. But Ashton Jeanty, number 1, I think this might be the shortest discussion we have. As you said, we've already discussed him in a few of our previous episodes. I think we had him in that second tier of Dynasty running backs, RB3 or RB4 for all of us here. But even if you leave aside the production, and some people may question, the sheer numbers he put up at a Mountain West school, just the film really speaks for himself. He has like elite contact balance. He has just home run ability out the wazoo. I think I saw that in 9 of his games he had runs of over 50 plus yards. And, we love that for fantasy football. I think Theo Ash on Twitter described him as someone who can make you miss in a phone booth. He just is excellent in small spaces for really any kind of any football player. It's just really so fun to watch Ashton Jeanty. And then coming to a few of the other things that may not have been as apparent just watching the 2024 season is, well, one, projected top 10 draft capital for a running back is in this day and age is, it is quite meaningful, but historically, that type of prospect just almost never misses. I'm really struggling to think of one, at least in the last 5, even maybe 10 years, that has missed from a top 10 draft capital standpoint. Obviously, we don't have that confirmation yet, but that's kind of where he's being mocked. And the other point is, we didn't really see this in 2024, but in 2023. He had 43 catches for 569 receiving yards, and that's really what caught my attention of Jeanty first heading into 2024 is he had that ability to be that dual threat that we obviously love in fantasy football, especially in PPR formats. I really do think this is a can't miss prospect, if not at the talent of Saquon and Bijan, who've really been those spearheads of classes. He might just be a tier below in the talent standpoint. And last point, not that this really matters for the game we play, but I think he just seems like a great dude. And something that stood out to me is at the Heisman ceremony, or the pre-interview stuff. He actually went in Boise State school gear, which no one does. Like, none of these prospects, they're all dressed the nines, with the bling and the suits and everything, as they should be. It's the biggest moment of their young careers so far. But it told me a lot about Ashton Jeanty, that he was repping Boise State, gear, and just the way he talked about the school. Obviously, the transfer portal era. He could have left like an Alabama, a la Georgia Tech to Bama, Jahmyr Gibbs. No one really would have batted an eye or thought anything bad of him. But the fact that he stayed at Boise for another year and rep them at the biggest moment of his career really tells me a lot about his character. So for me, locked in 101 in the rookie class, and it's more of a discussion of how high in startup ranks can you put Jeanty is a bigger question, I think.
Yeah, default to, again, episode 2 and talking about where we place him in the RB tiers. But a few things just off the bat. You mentioned monster production. One of the things I like to look at is scrimmage yards per season through some of his career. And I've been kind of evaluating running backs the way I currently do it since 2020. The Jonathan Taylor, the JT class, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those initials. But since then, no running back had produced more than, funny enough, Deuce Vaughn. He had been the best scrimmage yards per season producer. And I didn't really love his tape. I didn't think he was that great. It was a lot of receptions and maybe yards against weaker competition. That was something like 1,600 scrimmage yards per season. There's 3 guys in this class that have more than that. So we're like, for this decade, the 2020s, we're talking like historic level of college production. Not just from Jeanty, but from other running backs in this class. And Jeanty, 1,877 scrimmage yards per season. And I saw that. That was insane. And something even more insane comes up soon. I'll talk about that eventually. Had a 43-catch season, one of the best single-season marks of any running back in this class. I believe it's top 3. What really stood out to me was the tape. He is my 4th highest tape grade since this 2020 class. And I think one of the things I really look at that he especially excelled at was footwork. It's always the most important part for a running back. How does a running back move? And he seems to get it, all the great traits of footwork. And there's 2 major things I look at. A, are you wasting steps? And certainly you see a lot in change of directions. The backs that can't change direction as well, because they're generally taking several steps to start, stop, change. The really good ones with excellent technique, they do it seamlessly, and Jeanty certainly does. But then also the how do you gain more yards aspect of footwork is continuing to move your feet even through contact, and he does that all the time. So it's one of those players that technically looks great, but then just how athletically gifted he is. I mean, in the footwork, fluidity, balance, and burst scores, my 4 main film grade scores, he's top 5 in all of them, and he's number 1 in footwork and number 1 in burst. You're telling me he's like the fastest athlete in a short distance, and he's got the technique down? Like, that's, to me, the perfect mold of technique and athleticism. And again, since 2020, my 4th highest overall film grade, tied with Breece Hall, behind Kenneth Walker at 1, Bijan Robinson 2. I'll whisper Keontae Ingram at 3. Jamie knows about my crazy takes on. There's certain running backs I just love. I see the tape and I just commit. And I think we're going to talk about that again today. Jamie will certainly bring up names in the past. I've already brought up one with Keontae Ingram, but Jamie, we're here to talk about Ashton Jeanty. So I'll let you have your speak.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty, man, we're talking about one of the most exciting running back prospects we've seen in the last decade, not just 5 years. Go back 10 years. Put him up there with Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, you mentioned Bijan Robinson. That's elite company to be up there with, man. From an analytical standpoint, like, Jeanty checks every single box. His production, efficiency, advanced metrics. I mean, that puts him up there with the best we've ever seen. His vision is special. Not enough people are talking about the vision, but he consistently sees gaps before they even open up. He anticipates space, finds cutback lanes. He creates opportunities, exactly what we look for fantasy football. Like he's fast, he's strong. He plays with like that elite level of contact balance. Like defenders don't bring him down easily. More often than not, it takes 2 to 3 guys just to slow him down. And after first contact, like he's still gaining yards.
And that'll make him a good goal line back. And we already talked about how good he is in space, just how good he is receiving that third down back. Like those are the 2 roles we want. And he seems like he can dominate at both of those. And that's what makes elite, truly top tier running backs in fantasy.
Yeah, he pairs that power with explosiveness, like that burst off the line of scrimmage, the ability to get through his cuts, the force while like staying light on his feet, like his footwork, like you mentioned, it's polished. Bottom line, Jeanty has all the tools to be a star at the next level, hands down, the 101 in rookie drafts. And like Rahul said, where are we taking him in startups?
Also, CK here saying, "What's up, guys?" So that's the question there. But yes, thank you, CK, and Jamie mentioning in the chat too. Ask any questions throughout. We'll go through all the running backs we want to talk about today, and just to say that yes, all of us clearly had Jeanty ones. This was a unanimous number 1. It's also the case here. Unanimous number 2, Omarion Hampton. All of us had him at RB2, and I will say, from a film grade perspective, I wasn't as excited about Hampton as the consensus seemed to be. He was actually 7th in this class among the film grades. I evaluated 19 of them film grades. Now, 5, 6, 7 are all super close. So he could have easily just been top 5. Maybe that could be bias. That could be like a mistake, something missed, game sample size chosen, things, the variance of the scouting. But if you want to call what I do scouting, but I got the audacity to do it. I will. But I mentioned earlier with Jeanty's production, this is the one that's even more insane. The only player higher than Jeanty I've seen in the last 5 years with a higher scrimmage yards per season. 1,880, which is, I mean, almost essentially what Jeanty's is. 3 scrimmage yards per season more, but he's more, right? And so if he's producing at that level that Jeanty is, he had a 38 reception season, so he's also shown the pass catching ability, and then he killed it at the combine. 9.61 RAS, one of the highest in the class. So put everything together to where even though, 7th in my film grades, but I'm seeing this insane production, the athleticism's there. It's kind of undeniable to me that I'd have to raise Hampton. I feel like I didn't with Gibbs going into the draft. And then once I kind of raised him after the draft. And it seemed inevitable that it should happen. Maybe I kind of, because the film grade wasn't as high, I kind of still ignored things and resisted. So this is maybe me correcting that and not making that mistake again and just going Hampton right away to number 2. But I will say, even though he was 7th this year, that still would have made him the highest film grade of last year's class. So you could say that about a lot of running backs. But yes, Jamie, would love to hear what you have to say about Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, Omarion Hampton, man, he's a big back. He's got power. He's got speed. He's 6 foot, 221 pounds. He's a multiple sport athlete. He played basketball and track and field along with football. Dude runs 4.46 40 time, which isn't the fastest, but he can get to that top speed very quickly. He had 45 runs over 10 plus yards. He averaged 4.3 yards after contact per attempt. And over the past 2 seasons, he had 139 missed tackles. Like, I'm all in on Hampton. His explosiveness, next level. He's got great vision. His decision making's amazing. He's a 3-down back at the NFL level. He wasn't used a ton in the passing game, but he has those reliable hands. I could see him getting about maybe 3 targets per game, so maybe like 40 to 50 per season. He catches 25 to 30 of those. He'll be in that RB1 top 10, top 12 territory, like easily. I think it's a lot closer in rankings between Jeanty and Hampton than it is between Hampton and the next guy we're going to be talking about on our list. But I could see him getting late day 1 draft capital, but at the very least, early day 2. For fantasy, I already have him in the top 10 for my Dynasty running backs. Pretty high up there. I believe he's at 7 overall.
Yeah, we talked about me being too low, and I think I've raised him to 6 or 7 as well. So I agree with you, Jamie.
Just on a weekly basis, I could easily see him finishing anywhere between like a low end RB1, high end RB2, and like fantasy, that's like what 8 to 15 range. I'll take him all day.
And just with the pass catching real quick, I mentioned 38 receptions is a single season high for him. That's the 5th highest mark of the 21 running backs I'm ranking in this class. So still pretty good relative to the rest of this class as a pass catcher. But Rahul, anything else to add about Omarion Hampton?
Yeah, I think you guys covered most of it. Just the receiving. I think a lot of these running backs we're going to talk about with pretty decent receiving profiles, if nothing, too special. There's certainly no, Gibbs or Achan, even Bijan to a certain extent.
JT.
I mean, I think not to spoil too many things, but the next running back we're going to talk about is a great receiving back. But a lot of these, the Hamptons, and they did well with what they were asked to do. I honestly don't put too much stock into the receiving game in the college level because some systems just don't ask, the running back to catch the ball. The fact that he did it is definitely a plus. Kyle, you touched on the RAS, the relative athletic score. He was 43rd overall in terms of athletic testing in the last 40 years for running backs. Another metric that we look at, I definitely like to look at is speed score. This combines the weight, the size, mainly the weight with the 40 time that the running back ran. And there's usually a mark at 110, which only 3 players were above in this year's class. Omarion Hampton was one of them. Bhayshul Tuten led that list, of course. But these are just the kind of metrics that I'm no film guru. I definitely don't call what I do scouting, but I'd like to look at these key indicators. Athletic testing is one of them. Buzz for draft capital is another. I feel pretty good about Hampton, like Jamie said, going late day 1, early day 2. I think with those kind of indicators, like I said, it's hard to see a prospect that really would miss, at least when we're attributing rookie draft capital to them. So I feel pretty good about Hampton as the RB2 class.
Yeah, so that ends the unanimous portion of the show. Now we're going to get to RB3 here. So our running back 3 by our aggregate rankings is TreVeyon Henderson. Jamie, you do have Henderson at 3, but you're the only one. Rahul, you have him at RB4. I've got Henderson at RB5. But Jamie, as the highest on Henderson, I'll let you kick off the TreVeyon Henderson spiel and love here.
This dude's going to be consistent. He performs at a high level in a reliable way. He's good at decision making. He's got great vision. It's awesome at that start-stop explosiveness. He's got quick feet, changes direction well. What I love about him is he picks up those blitzes and pass pro. Good hands on his check down options. He's not the best receiver, but he's a guy that can get you that home run hit at any moment. He's very well-rounded. In his 4 years in his college career, I believe he averaged 6.4 yards per carry. That's a terrific number right there. You're going to have to get this guy in the early to mid first rounds of super flex drafts if you want him. I already have him in my top 10, just like Hampton, but a little bit lower. He's at my RB9. You might think I'm crazy for that, but I'm putting myself ahead of the curve. I'm not waiting for people to catch up, man, because if you ain't first, you're last, right?
I don't think it's that crazy because just listening to some real NFL podcasts, less fantasy, just in terms of what people are expecting the mocks, like Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, and they've been talking about it's almost assured that Hampton's going to be a first round pick. They seem pretty confident that he will be, and they're even talking Henderson might as well. That's the if it's 2.5 RBs in the first round, they're considering taking the higher, and that Henderson might sneak in. So if that happens, and maybe it's not Henderson, maybe it's a different running back, but a third guy could get in there. And if Henderson is a first rounder, then does make sense to have him as a top 10, Jamie.
I was so excited about Henderson coming out last year. I was going to put him as my RB1. He's going to be a top five pick, no matter what.
I think you rinse and repeat that comment for most of these. Like film grade higher than last year's class. That same thing with Henderson. He's a 5th in this, so almost essentially same score as Hampton. Just from a film perspective, I really liked a lot of the technical stuff Henderson was doing. An established back. He's been in college a few years. 3rd in footwork, 4th with the body fluidity and pad level aspect of scoring, and then 4th in contact balance. I thought he was really strong. He's 15th though in this class in burst score for me. So the games that I watched, it seemed like that short area burst wasn't always there, and that's kind of what hurt him. And maybe a little bit in my rankings, and didn't quite put him in the same tier, I think, as Hampton and Jeanty, which is why again I got him down at 5. But Rahul, you had him at 4. Anything you want to add about Henderson?
Yeah, it's funny if you go back to a couple of years ago, TreVeyon Henderson as a freshman at Ohio State, we were talking about this guy as like a Bijan level prospect. Yep. His freshman season was truly special, and he had a few injury hit years. Really was surprising he didn't come out after the Quinshon Judkins transfer over. Jamie, I find it interesting that you actually said you didn't find him to be the best receiver. I thought actually of this class, and maybe of the top 5 running backs we're going to discuss, there's certainly a few less heralded receiving backs we'll talk about, but I thought he did more than the Hamptons and definitely the Hamptons and a couple of the others here, like Kaleb Johnson, who the most they did was really catch checkdowns and maybe a screen or two. I actually saw TreVeyon Henderson split out wide, run deep routes in a way that it truly makes me excited about his role as a pass-catching weapon. A dream landing spot could be if he goes to the Broncos at 20, or maybe if they move back a little bit. He kind of fits that Sean Payton like Joker mold. The worries I do have with Henderson, and as we see the game develop, maybe this is less and less of a concern, but it is a valid concern. We're not just going to throw out years of historical data. A little bit on the smaller side at 202 pounds. To where I really don't see a path to 20 plus touches game in, game out. That's probably not the ideal way to use him. I have a few concerns about his ability to run between the tackles. Those 2 points make me feel like he is probably going to be splitting a backfield. Now, this isn't a death knell for Henderson as fantasy value, especially with that pass catching upside, but that's maybe why, certainly a tier down from the first 2 we talked about, and I had him actually at my RB4, right there. But few concerns to sustained fantasy production would be whether he can handle, that bell cow workload in comparison to really the others we're talking around him.
Yeah. So when I said he's not the best pass catcher as compared to like people like Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, like people like that are elite.
He's not going to enter as the best RB pass catching RB.
Yeah,
relative
he can
to
do
NFL.
it. He hit I believe in a couple of his years, he hit around that 30 reception mark in college.
Mm-hmm.
So
27, at least what I had in my stats, 27 was his highest. But really, the threshold, I know Zach Reed kind of pointed this out. 20 is the one we want to see as a threshold. As long as you had one season of 20 or more in your career, projects to be able to regularly do that and better in Python. So, so he's got that threshold that he's met. Now, this is Rahul, you referenced the players around, and this really is the Ohio State section, but our rankings all kind of have that because all 3 of us, wherever they are in the rankings, have TreVeyon Henderson and his teammate or former teammate, or well, maybe future teammate too if they get drafted in the same spot, but Quinshon Judkins. Henderson and Judkins back-to-back, all of us have that in our rankings, whether, moved around a little bit because of other names. So I guess just quickly, Jamie, why do you have Henderson higher than Judkins?
I love Judkins. They are close. But like with Judkins, like when he was a true freshman, he had 274 attempts, which I believe is a school record, if I'm not mistaken. The following year, he had 271 attempts. So that screams workhorse potential right there. We know volume is king, right? Like his freshman year, Judkins had 17 touchdowns, then another 17 touchdowns, and even sharing a backfield with Henderson. he had 16 touchdowns. He scored 3 times in the national championship game. So we got the upside of being a workhorse with the touchdowns. I love this guy, man. I can go on all day. I got more notes if you want me to go on.
Well, what I'll say is the quick kind of Judkins and Henderson are pretty similar in certain areas. Production-wise, like scrimmage yards per season, in spite of splitting, they both have incredibly impressive productive careers. 1338, so 1,338 scrimmage yards per season for Henderson through his college career, 1,409 for Judkins, so slightly higher, but within 100 yards of each other. Both have that 20 threshold reception season. So then it really came down to Henderson had the higher film grade, but Judkins had the higher RAS score. I believe the highest of the running back class at 9.89 at the combine. So
I just don't think Judkins has that home run hitting ability like I mentioned with Henderson, and that's why I have Henderson a little bit higher.
And it's funny because it's in spite of that elevated RAS score, he was only 7th in my burst score for my film grade. So Judkins actually would be one of the few guys that wouldn't be the highest running back last year. I believe Ray Davis from last year had a higher film grade overall than Judkins. So I liked him a little less from that. And I think ultimately, I could have, because Henderson's RAS score is pretty impressive as well, 9.43. So it's not like Judkins having the best in the class was something that was automatically going to elevate him. It was really close on both, but I think I just defaulted to my film grade over any of the metrics because everything else was so close. And so that's why I went Henderson over Judkins. However, Rahul, you have Quinshon Judkins as your RB3. So let's hear it. Why do you have him higher than Henderson and, frankly, everyone else in the class? Other than Hampton and Jeanty, of course.
No, again, to take bits and pieces from what both of you said, volume is king, right? And this is a guy who's proven to be a volume sponge. He's bell cow size. I have simply no doubts that he's going to have the role at the goal line, which Henderson may not have, may split with someone else who's more suited to that kind of short yardage role. Quinshon Judkins is probably going to come in, and unless he's paired somehow with Derrick Henry, he's going to be the best short yardage back in whatever situation he is. Speaking of Derrick Henry, he's got a nasty stiff arm. He loves putting guys in the dirt, down to the dirt. And yeah, you touched on the RAS score. Highest in this class. I'd be shocked if there's one higher. Yeah, because he was 23rd overall since 1987 is at least when the RAS man does it. I think Kent Lee Flat is his name, but again, very close to that 110 speed score threshold. He's actually at 109. And yeah, it really to put Judkins at 3 and Henderson at 4 in my rankings, and both of you had Henderson one spot ahead of Judkins. For me, just I do slightly prefer that guy who's a little more guaranteed to get the little more likely to get the 20 plus touch. Nothing's guaranteed in fantasy football, but for those reasons, I like Judkins just a little bit more and more than the rest of the class. Jamie was spot on though. He does not have that home run ability. I think he has just enough burst to get to the outside when he does need to. It's obviously a monster running inside between the tackles. It's probably not going to break off, very many 40, 50-yard touchdowns like the others that we've already talked about. But home run ability, that's just like the cherry on the it's like,
I would say the one thing from a film perspective, the one trait they both had that I thought they excelled at was contact balance. Third best score in the class for Judkins for me in contact balance, 4th best score in the class for Henderson. So I see both could have that touchdown potential as being goal line backs and being able to fight for those tough yards to get into the end zone. So
yeah, Judkins, he's not the fastest guy on the field, but he does have like that burst to get into that second level of the field to be a successful fantasy running back. For NFL teams, like Judkins does have the ability to be a lead back, like Rahul said, but he also can land in a spot where he is a secondary back, but he'll be more efficient with his runs if he does split time.
So, by the way, for the exact rankings, again, Rahul had Judkins at RB3, Jamie at RB4. I'd had him down at RB6. I I do deviate a lot in the rankings, and that's definitely the case with this next player. As things now really start to spread and separate here. The top four were
But
pretty
real
easy.
quick before we go on, I just want to say Judkins is in my top 12 overall running backs for Dynasty. And like I said earlier, I might be a little bit early on that, but people are going to see it's going to happen.
Is this the class to do it? It seems like it's a really strong running back class that could. Was this what we were promised in 2020? JT delivered, but I don't know that anyone else necessarily did. But it seems like across the board, these seem to be the first four running backs going in mock drafts. So it makes sense that both of you have them as your top four. And Henderson, Judkins, interchangeable essentially. I like to take risks. I like to stick to my convictions. So you can tell that like I don't just do my film grade based on what people think, right? Like some of these examples of Keontae Ingram being my third highest film grade ever is proof that I'm truly just grading on what I see. So maybe what I see is wrong. I know there's a bit of a disagreement here. As we get to running back 5, it does seem like another guy I've seen often go in the top 5. And so, yeah, maybe I'm taking a big leap of faith here, but running back 5, Kaleb Johnson. Rahul and Jamie both have him at RB5, whereas I've got him at RB9 for this class. So who would like to begin?
I'll go first. So Kaleb Johnson, don't we have enough Johnsons in this league? And we can't just call him Kaleb because of Caleb Williams. And if we just say Johnson, I mean, there's 100 of them. But anyway, I see this guy.
He's the one we just have to say his full name every time. We just got to get used to it and can't be too lazy. That's all it is.
But I see him, like, he'll be decent. He'll put up decent enough numbers. I can see him being an RB2 or a flex option on teams. Like, he's got exceptional vision. He sets up blocks. He runs with that controlled violence. Like, he's tough. He's a reliable runner. He gets better as time goes on during the game. He averaged, 5.8 yards per carry in the fourth quarter during the 2024 season. That's crazy. 5.8 in the fourth quarter. So he doesn't slow down. The negatives I see, he doesn't have great top end speed. He gets caught from behind a lot. And he also needs development in his route running ability. But he does have the skills to be a top running back in like a power running offense. Like, we won't be it depends on the offense is where I would lower him if it doesn't fit him. But he's a guy that's not going to come in begging for reps. He's going to go in there and he's going to steal the reps. Like, he has ability. He sees the field. He has quick moves. He runs through his defenders. I just see him being like a big impact right away in the right offense. Like, I'll be looking to draft him in the early second round of rookie drafts, but I see him going in the late first, and that's just too early for me.
Rahul, go ahead. You've got him at RB5 too, so enthusiastic enough about him.
I think Jamie said a lot of what I wanted to say. Kaleb Johnson is just like pretty good at everything without being, exceptional at one given trait, one like specific trait. The speed, yeah, definitely. He ran 4.57, but this is also a back that's 6'1", 224, another one with bell cow size. There are certain aspects, and I promise it's not just the Iowa black and gold that's making me say this, but in a way, it was like Najee Harris-esque, yeah, the Steelers, black and gold, but just that kind of build that he has, that taller back, bigger back, that I saw a lot of similar things, a lot of these bigger guys, and this class is littered with them, we almost don't see the, truly how, elusive they can be because they're just built like freight trains, right? But the point that Jamie finished on, I think, is pretty valid. The fact that Kaleb Johnson, more so than the other four we talked about, it's going to be a little more system dependent, offense dependent, O-line dependent. He's not really the most creative on his own. He kind of gets what's there for him rather than thank you, anonymous Jamie again. But yeah, like I was saying, he's just a good back without being a great back. I think the average outcome is probably going to be an RB2. Might need, Big Ben checking down to Najee Harris like 500 times to be, the RB3 overall, right? But I think, again, and just bringing it back to size and draft capital, of course, huge indicators for me. There was some early first round. There was some first round buzz, I think, a couple months ago, and that's cooled off a little bit. But him and, the top 5 that we've talked about, I feel pretty certain that they're going to be at the very worst second round pick. So I feel pretty good about Kaleb Johnson. It's a safe RB in this class.
I find it hilarious because literally the next running back we were going to talk about, I was going to compare it to Najee Harris. So we love Najee so much, we're constantly trying to replicate it with different running backs. But so a little lower. I got him at RB9, which from a film grade perspective, it's actually lower than where I had him. I had him at RB8 from a film grade, and that's 8 running backs. That would have been higher than last year's, again, RB1 for my film grade, which is Ray Davis. So he's got that distinction. And while you guys talk about the long speed isn't there, his best trait, at least where he was ranked among this class, 4th among running backs in this class in my burst score. So I thought his short area quickness was actually really good. But yeah, the long speed, there's questions there. The production was pretty good, but we're getting less than the last couple guys. I mean, everyone else we mentioned, we're talking about Henderson at the lowest at 1,338 scrimmage yards per season. Kaleb gets into the 1,200s, 1,266, which is actually still pretty close. Just hit the threshold of receptions in a season we like to see, with his single season best being 22. But I believe that was his only 20 catch season. So while he did it one time, yeah, it's something that we'd love to see more of. Now, is it fair to say, based on what you guys are saying, I'm saying too much. There's an old saying about that, but do you guys have Kaleb in a tier below the others? I think we talked about Hampton and Jeanty being a tier, so Judkins and Henderson kind of in their own tiers, how you two view it.
Yeah, definitely. The guys we talked about, they're going to go in the early, mid, first round of any rookie draft. I'm not taking Kaleb Johnson until early second. So there is a big tier break between them. And I have wide receivers that I love that I would rather take between the top 4 and Kaleb Johnson.
I don't know. I'd probably take him over, not counting Jarquez Hunter as a wide receiver yet, but I'd probably take him over my wide receiver 3. Actually, I'd probably for me, big. Yeah, for me, probably will still merit, assuming let's call it 50th overall in the NFL draft, which I kind of expect him to go, maybe within like 10 picks of that, probably the later direction. But if he gets that 50th overall draft capital, I'll probably even go like 107, 108, more so than the wide receiver 3, which I'm maybe not too impressed with the top end of the wide receiver.
I think third round capital and an amazing landing spot is also a valid too. So it's one or the other.
We'll readjust.
Top 50 capital, or for sure.
We'll certainly readjust. And I guess just to finish it off, I know we kind of jump back in here, but another one that I am certain he'll get the role of the goal. He's a big boy. Maybe with the height, he runs a little bit too upright to really lean into that 224, 6'1" frame. Being tall is not sometimes the best attribute for a running back, and maybe can play a little bit more to his size, but I'm certain he's going to be the one on the goal line, especially if he is taken, 50th over.
Funny, I think you could say that same comment for our next running back. So at 6 in our aggregate rankings, we have Cam Skattebo. That's because I actually have him at RB4. He's one of the guys I do have above Henderson and Judkins. Whereas Jamie and Rahul, you both have him at RB8. So since I'm the pro Skattebo guy, I figure we'll give it the start. But this is my Najee Harris comparison, because I kind of view him, the way he's produced and what we expect him to produce, very similar to Najee Harris. So he, first off, number 1 score in my contact balance film grade. And actually, my film grade for Skattebo is 3rd best in this class. And we're approaching top 20 in the past. I believe he would make the top 20 actually in the past 6 draft classes. So definitely that was a motivation for me to continue to have him ahead of Judkins and Henderson. Just my eye evaluation first off before anything else kind of identified him as a top 3 running back in this class. Then you look at the metrics, and again, I think one of the ways he wins, power, contact balance, great goal line back, that reminded me a lot stylistically of Najee Harris. I think you guys mentioned, I don't think he's as tall as Kaleb Johnson. I think that's where, to your point, Rahul, the Kaleb Johnson Najee comparison came. Those are very tall running backs, and Skattebo doesn't quite have that, but it feels like he's robust, I would say, like Najee Harris. So probably a similar height weight comparison or ratio that Harris has. And you mentioned it, Ben Roethlisberger dumping down that one season Harris had, but frankly, he showed that in college too at Alabama. He was often used as a pass catching running back. Look at in this class, Cam Skattebo, his single season best at Arizona was 45 catches in one season. That's even higher than Jeanty's best, which is 43. So right on par there. The second highest of any running back in this class. Frankly, the guy that is higher than them, I don't think he's a good runner. So I don't know that. I think he's purely a satellite back. Actually, I'll just say here, it's Jaquavius Marks. We're not even going to talk about him in this episode because none of us even bothered ranking him that high. He had a season with 83 receptions in college, which was just wild. But he also didn't run much, and what I saw on tape wasn't very good. So I can see that's why he got 83 receptions, because that's the only thing they could find use for him. Okay, you're going to be the third down back, so pure satellite back there. So if we remove him, you could make an argument Skattebo is one of the most prolific pass catchers in this class. And again, a lot of that I think was just dump off opportunities, but being out there on third downs will provide that. So could he have a Najee Harris arc? And I love Najee Harris. I'm looking back at my all-time film grades, and Najee Harris is 11th since 2020. So 11th in the past 6 classes. And Skattebo's actually 13th. So he comes in very similar to Harris, very similar production profile as well. So I like Najee Harris so much, and the process remains there with Cam Skattebo. So Hampton's production was enough to jump him ahead, but Henderson and Judkins didn't quite produce at that level, so they don't leapfrog Skattebo. But who wants to talk about Skattebo first, and wants to Skattebo my high opinion of it?
Now you have to go for it, Jamie. I need a second now.
So Skattebo, this was a very tough evaluation for me, because when you look back at his high school career, he was a 0-star recruit coming in to college. Like, I'm not sure his running style will transform at that NFL level. So I'm waiting on where the NFL drafts him to tell us if I'm going to be in or out on him. He only had one productive college season, but oh boy, was it a massive season. What was it? 1,700 rushing yards, just shy of 300 carries, 25 touchdowns, and added 45 receptions for 600 yards on top of that. I'm just worried we're going to end up with the Kendre Miller type. Where
who I also really love, so it makes sense that I'd be fooled again.
I loved Miller too, but someone drafts someone, just doesn't use them. Or at best, we have a Jay Ajayi career where he gives us one great season and then he just disappears. There's definitely upside, but the risk right now is just too big for me to target this guy that high. I'll take a chance on him if I get him at the right price, but currently he's too high for me. If he does end up on my fantasy teams, as soon as he breaks out, I'm selling him at peak value. I just don't think he could sustain that peak value that he's going to get. So I've been saying Skattebo is kind of compared to a Kyron Williams. Without McVay, nobody would be drafting Kyron Williams or even talking about Kyron Williams. But that is kind of the dude's upside. What do you think?
Well, and Kyron Williams, I really like the technical running. He was a good footwork guy. I remember that, even though the athletic burst wasn't there, and certainly Skattebo kind of shares that. The contact balance was best, but 9th best footwork in the class as well. So I think the decent technique too. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Skattebo just, if I had to imagine a bowling ball as a human, it'd probably be Cam Skattebo with just that kind of build. And I mean, you said it, Kyle, the contact balance is just so impressive. The sheer leg strength, like for him to stay upright on some of those plays is really just impressive. And I think, just like Jamie said, the worries is the NFL is not going to attribute draft capital that conventional wisdom, conventional analytics would say he's one to target, because in your average league, the average, dynasty manager who's not, super keyed into rookie scouting has probably heard of Cam Skattebo over a lot of the other backs we're going to talk about, simply because of how he performed in the college football playoffs. If he gets third round draft capital, he's probably going to go a little too high for my taste. If he gets capital below that, then it's going to be a bit of a risk where, while he dominated at this level, he's most likely going to be a pretty average athlete at the NFL level, in my opinion. He didn't run at the combine. He ran a 4.65 on an unofficial 4.65 at the pro day. Maybe someone should have told him that wasn't the best idea to actually put that, number down. But just when you get to the NFL level, there's some highlights that I see of Skattebo. There's one in particular on the goal line where he's forced out wide and he managed to stay upright and squeezes right in. In the NFL, you're probably tackled for a 3-yard loss there. And I fear that's where we're going to see him not stand out. That's kind of an ironic point to make, because he actually led the class, or I guess he was at the back of the class at stuff rate, which means he barely got stuffed. He got stuffed at one of the lowest rates in this class, but just plays like that at the college level a lot easier when you're not playing with the cream of the crop of athletes, right?
And just to clarify, stuffed means 0-yard gain or a loss.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Anything that doesn't gain yards. So consistently gaining yards, and we're consistently gaining time. Anything else to say about Skattebo? Okay.
I'm done. We do have a comment in the chat if you want to bring that up real quick.
Thank you, Jamie. Actually, yes. All right. Well, hello, Jason Bell. Dig the show. Thanks to Jamie for the trade advice today. Appreciate the help, and we'll definitely try to continue to tune in again. We'll appreciate that, Jamie. Appreciate you, Jamie, for helping people, and appreciate you, Jason, for checking us out. Yes, and we're going to talk trades later. We got a trade of the week that I think was actually pretty pertinent for this episode, especially talking about all these running backs. So Jason, if you have any other questions, feel free to pose them, and we'll get through them through the episode. We're about to get to what I would argue is our biggest diversity in rankings, and I guess that's my fault, isn't it? But number 7, Devin Neal. Will be lucky number 7 for Kyle for the sleeper running back. As soon as Jamie saw these rankings, what was your comment to me, Jamie, when you saw Devin Neal at my RB3, which is where he's at?
Yeah, what was? I don't even remember.
I think it had something to do with Evan Hull.
Oh, yes.
This is my version of Evan Hull. I like him better than Evan Hull. So this is even better than Evan Hull. But yes, Rahul doesn't quite share my enthusiasm. But like he has him one spot higher than Cam Skattebo. Rahul, you have him at 7. And Jamie, you did not rank Devin Neal inside the top 10.
Yeah, he's right outside my top 10.
So I'm just going to start the main reason why he's this high for me. He had the second highest tape grade in this class. I thought he was phenomenal. His fluidity score, his ability to evade guys in small spaces, but also to keep his pad level low, I thought was incredible. One of the best I've ever seen at that. So highest in the grade in that component. Second in burst score as well. I thought his short area quickness. To me, these were the two things that made Bucky Irving so successful last year. I didn't love the rest of it, but I think Devin Neal has better contact balance than Bucky and better footwork. So to me, this is almost a better version of what we saw last year of Bucky Irving. That's the first thing you're reminded. I think he's got a bigger frame and like a more RB body. Bucky Irving's pretty small and slim. Devin Neal seems like he's a better, stronger running back. And while 10th in balance, and the footwork wasn't great, but good enough that he was able to make it work. And actually, that was something I struggled with Bucky Irving last year, and that seemed to not matter at all. So there's that incredible burst and the great evasion is there. I know the relative athletic score. I was a little disappointed. Much better than Bucky Irving's, because that was the thing with Irving last year. Everyone thought he was going to run fast, and he didn't. And he had like a RAS score of like 4 or something. Devin Neal's was 8.55 when I saw after the combine. So pretty respectable. It's not quite what the other elite running backs are. And 1,264 scrimmage yards per season. That's essentially identical to Kaleb Johnson. Best single season is 25 receptions. So the production could see it being a level below the guys I have ranked ahead of him, Henderson and Judkins. But to me, the film grade being that high, I'm sticking to my convictions on Neal. If the NFL says I'm wrong, I'll let them prove me wrong in the NFL draft. But until then, I guess my strategy is I'm not reaching on guys like Henderson and Judkins. I don't necessarily want to take Neal in the first round, but I also mean I don't necessarily want to take the other guys in the first round either. So I'm looking at a lot of wide receivers in the first round, actually. Anything what I think will get first round wide receiver capital, I'm taking ahead of these running backs. But there's only so far I can go before I just take Devin Neal if I was to do a rookie draft before the NFL draft. But
yeah, Kyle, you make some great points. Like right now, he is right outside my top 10. Like this could change once the NFL tells us how they view him. Like I've seen him all over the place in rookie drafts going back 2 months ago. He was going late first round a couple months ago. Now he's dropping to the third round, and some people take him in the late second. Like I'll be all in on him if I can get him at the right price. Because like you compared him to Bucky Irving, and I saw that too. He could be that third round guy we're getting in our rookie drafts that's gonna jump into the top 10, just like Bucky is now. But we do need to see where the NFL takes him in order for me to actually put him in my top 10.
now, Rahul, that didn't stop you from putting him in the top 10. You like me more than Skattebo, having him at number 7, which is where our aggregate is. So that's yes, yeah. You're right on the mark, apparently.
Right on the mark with that one. And it's funny. I think Devin Neal, like kind of similarly to what I said of Kaleb Johnson, obviously very different builds, but he has like all the attributes without being exceptional at, again, like a certain trait. Definitely didn't test as well as I honestly had expected him to do, but that's all to say that I have more confidence that Devin Neal will be like a top 100 NFL draft pick than some of the other names that we're going to talk about, where the range of outcomes could be pretty widespread. I think Devin Neal is going to be a pretty solid player. He's going to be valued as such by the NFL. He's going to do if he thrusts into a starting role, I think he'll do kind of like Devin Singletary did, for the Buffalo Bills a couple years ago, decent, but always at the risk of being called a jag by someone who doesn't really rate him. But I just thought he was good at everything. You're right about the fluidity. He's better at short yardage situations that you'd expect. He has some receiving chops and production. He's decent as a pass protector. I really wanted him to come out last year. I thought he's another one that would have been in that RB1 mix, close to Henderson or Jonathan Brooks kind of tier. I think he's just a decent player. RB7 is probably pretty fair for what we've kind of discussed about him.
Like I said, he's going to be the guy I'm way too high on for way too long. Just like last year was Blake Watson, Jamie. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Better film grade than Watson, but man, Watson was a pretty good producer. But it feels like more people are talking about him than they were about Blake Watson last year, Evan Hull a couple years ago, or Keontae Ingram, or Jermichael Hasty, or anyone that I've been. Yeah, this guy. It was Jamar Jefferson, I think, the 2021 class. But I have more faith in Devin Neal finally being the guy that proves Kyle right. And instead of all these other guys that, oh, man, Kyle loved this guy, and he didn't do anything once again. So, yeah, Devin Neal breaks the curse. Number 7, hopefully lucky number 7 for me to break that curse. But, Jamie, this is funny enough. Our lucky number 7 in the rankings, RJ Harvey, we both had him at number 7. Finishes 8th here because Rahul actually had him outside the top 10. But yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I actually might move RJ Harvey up to my RB6. We'll see. But Like, this is the biggest riser that I've seen since I started mock drafting back in February. I was targeting him. I drafted him in all of our going for 2 league drafts. I was getting him in 4th round. Then all of a sudden he jumped up to the 3rd round. And now if you want him, you need to grab him in that mid-2nd round to get RJ Harvey. He pretty much like has that same build as Ashton Jeanty, except I believe he's 5 pounds lighter. I actually like Harvey better as like a overall running back than Kaleb Johnson that we talked about earlier, but we do need to consider that age 24 that RJ Harvey is in Dynasty, which is why I have him a little bit lower. But looking at his numbers, I don't know if I want to consider the age an actual factor, because back in 2023, he had over 1,400 yards, 18 touchdowns. Last season, he had almost 1,600 rushing yards, 25 touchdowns. And like, if you had his passing into it, he was at like 1,850 yards from scrimmage. Like, the dude's speedy, he's quick. His change of direction ability like really stands out to me. He doesn't have good route running, but it's decent enough, and he does have that ability to catch the ball. So like right now, it checks the boxes. Like, if you go back and look at, there was a game. What was it? I believe it was versus Colorado. He had his wheel route that you just look at him, and the route running that he ran on that wheel route, he just burned everyone. Like, he actually does have legitimate pass catching threat, like with that, like high motor ability. Like, for fantasy, he could definitely be a difference maker if you put him into a lineup. Last I checked, he had 54 runs over 10 yards or more. Like, I'm not projecting him to be a starter right away, but like, let's say the guy in front of him goes down with an injury. This dude could be a legitimate like 200 plus carry guy in an offense. Like, think of a guy like Chase Brown last year, or like a Tyrone Tracy. Even this year going into the year, Jalen Warren. I look at him similar to that. Like, despite his older age, I want this guy on my dynasty roster, and I'm not going to let him fall in rookie drafts. He's probably going to be my most exposed running back if I could get him in the mid to late 2nd round. Yeah, I mean, I'm only looking 3 to 4 years in Dynasty for a running back anyway. So if he's 24, by the time he hits 28, you know, he did what I drafted him to be in the late 2nd round. I think right now Harvey is the next man up, and I want all of RJ Harvey.
You're looking at running backs. What can they do on their rookie contracts? That's the juice you need to squeeze. If they can't produce, then you're not. You really get a good investment. But if they produce heavy there, it doesn't matter what happens during their second. Got the production that was worth, as long as you put it in your lineup, of course. I mean, hey, if anyone playing college fantasy football probably played Harvey a lot in their lineups. Just looking at his production, 6th highest scrimmage yards per season in this class, and meet the 20 reception threshold just barely. His best season was 22 catches, but he hit it. He got those 20 receptions. So that checks that box. The one box that really didn't check for me on film grade was the footwork, actually. I was first seeing that. I was like, maybe I don't think I'm going to like this guy. He did the opposite of Jeanty. He was stopping his feet on contact very often. And also, changing direction did take time to stop usually 2-3 steps before the change was actually made, unlike Jeanty, who does it so seamlessly. But in spite of the footwork, I graded Harvey as top 5 in every other aspect. In body fluidity, contact balance, he was 5th. 3rd in burst. So while the footwork was awful, his short area burst was fantastic, and his relative athletic score wasn't quite as high, even as Devin Neal, but certainly the other guys, which is why he falls just below here at RB7 for me. But certainly feels like he belongs in the discussion in the top 2 tiers or top 3 tiers, I guess.
Since Rahul doesn't even have him in the top 10, I think we're going to change his mind. He's going to go back and maybe rethink his.
I know, guy. I don't want to. I don't even want to say he's out of my top 10 because I saw like too much wrong with him. Quite frankly, there's just so many good running backs in this class, and when I brought up immediately after we put this sheet together, and I brought up his age. It's really not from the sense of beyond the rookie contract, because running backs at this day, the game we play, in 2024, 2025, you're only really drafting them for those 3-4 years. But as that 24-year-old, and I know he came into college as a quarterback and then he tore his ACL, I think in his true sophomore year, which is probably why he stayed in college a little bit longer. Is the NFL really going to touch him before the 5th round? And I think that's where this is one player that I'll wait. Let me see where he lands, when he lands, and I'll probably have.
I think he's going to get like early day 3 or early 3rd round capital. That's just
that would be. Yeah,
I think he is. But yeah, I think me and you were about to throw hands in the chat when I saw you not even ranking him in your top 10.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
How do you think I felt when I saw my RB3 wasn't in your rankings, Jamie? Yes. Well, hey, we're going to a player we can all agree on. Number 9 in our aggregate rankings is Ollie Gordon II. Rahul, you have him at RB9. Jamie, you and I both have him at RB10. So it's funny how there's so much around him that's kind of chaotic, so many differences in our rankings at this point, but he was the one guy we all just kind of put him at the same spot. Rahul, you want to start us off with Ollie Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, Ollie Gordon, if somehow he was eligible to come out a year ago, he would have maybe even been a borderline like first round like NFL draft pick. He was the Doak Walker award winner in 2023, right? 2023.
Yeah.
And then we, in Dynasty, we just don't like prospects that tail off. That downward trend is never what we want to see. Kind of saw with Tank Bigsby when he's coming out. Zach Evans had it to a certain extent, and then both of those obviously were major. Tank Bigsby, who knows? But Zach Evans, major bust. I don't think he's on an NFL team anymore. But Ollie Gordon, we also have to factor in a bit of character concern. DUI in preseason, if not just the start of the 2024 season. But what he did in 2023, I think was special. Not just the production wise, his ability to get in the end zone, I think, is special. He has bell cow size. He ran 4.61, which is a little slower than what we'd like, but I think there's a lot, in what he put out that I think he has those kind of traits. I mentioned the bell cow size. In 2023, he actually had the 4th highest yards per carry, more than 6 yards a carry for players with 20 plus carries per game, which shows he still was able to maintain that efficiency even at high volume. So really, I think if you've been watching the show, volume, size, those are the kind of like old school traits that are really hit on. And RB9, RB10 is very similar. It's probably in that massive tier at this point. But I really do think that if he probably needs that kind of right situation to do well. But I'm not writing him off just because he kind of fell off in 2024. He played in a team that wasn't very good with a pretty bad O-line and faced quite a lot of stacked boxes. So I'm a little more willing to discount 2024 just because his 2023 was really that good.
JD, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. In 2023, he had that monster season, like 285 attempts, over 1,700 yards. He had 22 touchdowns. He had almost 40 receptions for 330 yards. Then last year, he had about 100 less attempts. He had 850 yards and 14 touchdowns. Not the drop-off that we want to see, but I think he's getting a little too much hate, and he could still be a good running back at the next level. Like, he has the size is there, the pass-catching ability is there.
Mm-hmm.
For me, right now, like, I'll take a shot on him, hoping he returns to that 2023 form. but I'm not overspending on him. Player comparisons that I would put him at is like a Brian Robinson Jr., Tyler Algier, like that type of production. You know, if he starts games here and there, he's going to get you points.
And I think, all you guys talk about production each time, like so much better in 2023 than 2024. And evaluating the 2024 film grade, he ended up 12th in my rankings, but with his college production, that's put him up higher than some of the guys that have better film grades than him, but the production just wasn't nearly there. He is one of the few that actually had higher scrimmage yards per season than RJ Harvey, 5th in this class. So even with the dip in production last year, he's still an elite producer. So I guess if I had just evaluated 2023 film grade alone, he's probably taking RJ Harvey's spot at the RB7. I don't think he's going to quite pass Judkins or Henderson, but he probably enters in that conversation. His RAS score was just above 8, so 8.09. So we're getting further, as we go down, we're getting further and further away from the elite RAS scores. There's a few other guys that just didn't produce in college that have RAS scores or had poor film grades. Like there's some hole in their profile. So as bad of a season as he had in 2024, would we still call Ollie Gordon just a well-rounded prospect? There's not really a massive weakness to anything he does.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think people are really the speed 4.61 is a little bit just a touch slower than you'd like. Are we really gonna penalize Gordon for 4.61 when Kaleb Johnson ran 4.57? That's like a different day. You run it back 10 times, they might be the same, but I don't think he's an elite athlete, but I think he is pretty good at just about everything. And
which I think that's why we all have him in our top 10, right?
Yeah.
Because none of us view him as, okay, this is a bad prospect we're not willing to invest in, but we're not willing to make a super high investment in.
No, and not this is really, this doesn't come into film evaluation, but character concerns in the sense of a DUI, that is a major red flag. That just not to go too far into this, it just speaks to not having respect for others, for the rules. Like then it comes into question like work ethic at the next level. Like the NFL has a ton of players with character concerns who have gone on to be all pros, right? But as a rookie coming in, as someone who's probably again going to be a day 3 kind of player, not much team investment, teams are going to be a little more likely to say like, all right, we gave you the shortest leash and that's it. So I do have to bring that up, but as a player himself with the production he had, I think he is it's probably worth a shot.
So now we'll take a shot here at the next 5 running backs, and we'll try and go through this. Well, we'll take a shot at doing it quickly because it's interesting because now we get to the point where for these next 5 players, only one of us have them ranked inside the top 10. So we'll kind of just default to that person to explain why. And the next 2, honestly, we've got them 10 and 11 in the rankings, but they really should be tied because Rahul, you had one guy at 6, Jamie, you had the other guy at 6. And I didn't have either in the top 10, but my overall rankings had Jamie's player slightly higher than Rahul's player. So which is why at number 10 we have Dylan Sampson. So Jamie, you're RB6 right?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of moving RJ Harvey above Dylan Sampson, but it's a tough one because
never mind. We're talking about Martinez first. No, I'm just kidding.
No, Dylan Sampson, dude, like this dude, he's explosive, has that big playability. We just have to be excited about this guy. If you like Jaden Wright last year and his upside in drafts, Sampson is a better version of Jaden Wright. He was clocked between like 22 to 23. I can't remember the exact, but 22 to 23 miles per hour on the field during like a college game. I know he ran his pro day. His metrics weren't that great. I think we were expecting like a 4.35 speed, but he ran like a 4.45.
4.42, yeah,
4.42, something like that. But the dude, he averaged 4.9 yards per carry in his whole college career. and he was a touchdown machine last season. I think he had 22 touchdowns last season. I can see this upside be someone like James Cook type season, like James Cook had last year, or at worst, like a Tajay Spears, like what everyone wanted Tajay Spears to be. With him coming out, the dude's he's well rounded. He's a great pass catcher. Let's see, what else can I say about him? I mean, he's only 20 years old. He's very, very young. Like, I thought he was going to go back to college one more year. I didn't think he was going to come out this year, but the NFL must have gave him some kind of a good report to say, hey, kid, come out as an early declare because we like you. So in rookie drafts, I'm seeing him going off the board in that like 208 area, which is fair value. My overall running back ranks, I'm putting him like right outside that top 24. So like currently, I believe he's top 27 for me. He's a guy that I can see maybe like at first getting that 35% of the carries, splitting a backfield. But if the guy in front of him misses time, this is going to spike his value up to a high-end RB2 range, kind of like Jerome Ford did a few years ago. It's just, I'm not going to be too heavy exposed on him, but I do want some shares, and I'll be happy to just like, sprinkle him in on a few of my teams if I get him at a good value.
I would say the Jalen Wright comparison is pretty close. Like I'm looking at my film grades for both are almost identical, at least from the overall grades. I can go back and see like all the specifics of who ranked better where, but the overall grades are almost identical. Now, Jalen Wright, looking back last year, he had the highest relative athletic score of the running back class at 9.81. That's almost like that would put him, I think second best in this class. Like it's even better than Hampton's and almost as good as Judkins. So I don't think Dylan Sampson quite put up that. Now, Sampson better producer in college, 1,207 scrimmage yards per season, where Jalen Wright barely eclipsed 1,000 scrimmage yards per season. So that was kind of the disappointing part of Wright's production. So I guess from that perspective, yeah, better producer from Sampson. I can see why you made that comparison, Jamie. If I had to bank on one, I would lean maybe a slightly worse version of Jalen Wright as opposed to a slightly better version. But I think it's an apt comparison. Rahul, do you want to add anything about Sampson?
Frankly, again, another guy that I'll still need to get to. And maybe even as a question to ask one of the two of you is, are there any concerns? I mean, Jalen Wright, I think I had this concern as well. Like, how much is the Tennessee system, the way they play the spread offense, and just the openings that allows the running backs, that any concern of whether some of this production is a little bit, fugazi for that reason?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and the Tennessee does play their wide receivers out wide, like outside on the edges.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see like a system type running back, but I mean, I still see him having the skills to produce at the NFL level if they use him properly, and he gets drafted by the right team.
Yeah, and I think Jalen Wright too, much like. Achane was a different tier of prospect. Achane was a great player in college. But Achane, when he landed with the Dolphins, we were very excited. Jalen Wright, when he landed with the Dolphins, we were very excited. Yeah. Probably not going at Samson the Dolphins again. But yeah, if he falls in that kind of system, we can get a little more excited. I would be more excited.
Well, I know you're really excited here, Rahul, for number 11. In our aggregate ranking, Damien Martinez, who is your RB6.
Yep. I again, just another big boy who can handle the workload. I thought he would actually weigh a little bit higher than the 217 he came in eventually at the combine. For a long time they had him listed at the 230 range, and he is truly a big boy, standing at 6 foot. He ran a 4.51, which is impressive that size. And I think for the size that he is, I was really impressed with his ability to, his elusiveness. I thought he was a very patient runner. You'll see a lot of these highlights where it's almost like dawdling behind the line for like a second and a half before, making that move. And I thought that was very impressive at his size. I think, again, he's going to be someone that's, having the lion's share of the carries in any backfield, probably a split backfield, because much like some of the players we've talked about, he has some receiving production, but it's really the check downs from Cam Wards and nothing too special. He's not really a route runner. He has some wiggle, but I just really liked what he can do at his size. I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns in the right offense. And while there may be some production concerns, I think it's important to note he also really split that backfield, especially in his last season with Mark Fletcher and maybe I think one other running back. So and he eclipsed 1,000 yards in his sophomore and junior year, but he could have been so much more if he had more of the lion's share of the carries in college. But I think he can do in the NFL level. He's not special, but I think he is a pretty good player.
It's funny because the carries wasn't the thing I was concerned with. I'm looking at his scrimmage yards per season averaged over his career is 1,187. Like, we're getting a little bit lower than the Dylan Sampson, Kaleb Johnson level, but now we're getting to the 1,100s range. That's still pretty decent, better than Jalen Wright was, even with that wide open Tennessee offense. But the one part of his profile that really concerned me, never more than 17 receptions in a season. So really feels like he's going to be boxed into just being an early down back. Yeah. He's not going to have that PPR upside, which is why I've got him down at RB17 in this class. So
and that's extremely fair, because at the end of the day, we are playing fantasy football. He might be more effective for an NFL team running between the 20s that, hey, he's got 19 carries for 65 yards and no catches and no touchdowns. And it means fuck all for, excuse me, for all of us playing fantasy football, right? I completely see that point, but I do think really that patience, that vision, his ability to pick the right lane, behind the line, I was pretty impressed by him. He beat up my California Golden Bears at Oregon State and then at Miami. So I probably experienced a lot of Damien Martinez.
Yeah, I haven't really been targeting Martinez in a lot of drafts. I just let him pass by me. And I see him as that bruising type running back, early down, goal line back. But touchdowns are just so volatile. I can't just bank on that. Like, I see him being the thunder to someone else's lightning. So in the right offense, yeah, I could see him putting up decent numbers, but unless it's best ball, I don't want to make the decision to put a guy like this in my lineup every week.
No, I can't disagree. I can't disagree with what both of you said. We like fantasy football at the end of the day.
All right, so we got some comments rolling in.
Yes, we do have a question. So I was just going to bring that up. Thanks, guys, for taking over that discussion. So Nate Gang with a question. Christian McCaffrey, Josh Allen, and Jerry Jeudy for Michael Penix, Drake London, Ramondre Stevenson, and the 109.
Yeah,
asking what we think. And through the Six Pack account, asking, is this a super flex league or not? Because I think that makes a ton of difference.
Even in a single quarterback league, I don't even want to give that up for Josh Allen. Josh Allen is just too much of an asset, because that 109, if it is a single,
that hurts the 109 if it's a single quarterback.
But it also helps everyone else, because you're pretty much trading Josh Allen for London. Like, give me the QB1 over London, wide receiver 12 all day.
I would not accept that whole package for just Josh Allen.
Oh, it is super flex, and heck no, like you need to double that offer.
If let's say you get the elite producer in McCaffrey, like that could be a key to winning a season. And I think Jerry Jeudy finally broke out last year. I think he showed us enough that I'm confident to think he'll continue to at least be productive.
Like, I need 2 Bijan Robinsons to give up a Josh Allen in super flex.
I don't even think I want 2 Bijan Robinsons. Like, I want a quarterback, right? Like, in super flex, Josh Allen does a quarterback.
Get like a Bo Nix, someone at the lower end of the QB10 spectrum, and then get like a top 5 running back just to bring it closer.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement. The Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey side here in this trade. So another player we're
not
not
even close.
So back to our disagreements in terms of these big rankings. Number 12 in our consensus is Jarquez Hunter. I've got him at RB8, and neither of you guys have him ranked. And I guess the big appeal for me, he was RB4 in my film grades, third in footwork, second in contact balance. So just I think a very technically sound, strong goal line back with high touchdown potential in the NFL if given that role. So that's kind of where I've got all the appeal. Got to say the metrics. There's a reason that RB4 in my film grade. He's not ranked RB4 here. I mentioned RB8. So less than 1,000 scrimmage yards per season, 982. Which of the 21 running backs I've ranked, I'm pretty sure that's 18th or 17th. His RAS score is just below 8. It's 7.99, which means almost 8. But now we're starting to get in the range of the less good athletes, and we're not as elite as relative to other running backs. So dropped him to again RB8, just one spot ahead of Kaleb Johnson, which that might be the pivot point of how much you guys like Johnson. Maybe that's I'd consider even dropping him further. Right now, I'm not going to take him out of the top 10 just based on his film grade and what I saw. And I think he has, again, the role there, especially when it comes to being a goal line back and his impressive contact balance. I see touchdown upside with his ability to get on the field. That's really the big question. How early does he go in the draft? Will he get a chance to get on the field? I don't know. But until then, I'll be ranking him inside my top 10. So that's my spiel on Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah, dude, I need to look more into this guy because he had 6+ yards per carry on average. He has a high football IQ, and I'm looking now, he compares to that Jalen Wright. Do you see Jalen Wright in his film?
Oh, I think he's way better than Jalen Wright. From a film grade, Hunter's another guy that he would have been the best running back from last year's class in terms of film.
Yeah, saying he's got good vision. He's got that second gear that he can just explode through the holes. Man, I was
7th in my burst score, and that was something like the speed of Wright. I would say, I think I could see his because the problem with Wright is he's not a good enough pass catcher, but he seems like he's best in space. So it seems like it's tough. It doesn't seem like a great goal line back necessarily. So it's been tough to know what his role is going to be. That's been his biggest flaw. As much as we were excited about Wright going to that offense, Achane's get the pass catching work and the goal line stuff. It's kind of boxing Wright out. Whereas I think Hunter has a better potential to carve out again a goal line role. He did hit 20 receptions in a season. Just barely 21. There's a lot of guys that are hovering around that their single season best is 20, 21, 22. He's in that. So I think he's capable as a pass catcher, but really I do view him as a goal line back. So I kind of view him differently than I do with Jalen Wright. I'm trying to think of a better comparison. I don't want to just say Najee Harris again, because that's just that's the go-to guy.
This seems like a guy, I'm looking at my last mock draft that I did today, and he wasn't even drafted in 4 rounds in a super flex. So he could be a guy that you can just grab for free and just put in your taxi squad, see what he does.
So last year's best contact balance score was Audric Estime for me. So
fair.
I almost think Hunter's even still better. So tough to find an exact person. Problem was, again, the production just wasn't there. He didn't really produce in college. So this is purely a traits-based ranking for me.
I want to say what's up to the Draft Room Ballers. Dude's awesome. I watch all of his best ball drafts.
Oh yeah,
we have a great conversation. Yeah, he knows you, Kyle.
Well, he's another French Canadian, French speaking Canadian, and there's a Portuguese in his family too. So yeah, JD and I actually do share quite a connection. Ontario guys as well, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, thank you for stopping by, JD. I know he's kind of rebranded and coming out with a lot of content lately. So happy to see JD back.
And with him having a 6% ownership on drafters for that guy, I'm gonna start looking more into him because this is someone I might have overlooked.
You'll start hunting for Hunter.
Yes.
That puts an end to that segment, I guess.
It's better
now
than
we're
the
gonna
Skattebo one.
yeah. Okay. Well, moving on. RB13 in our aggregate ranking is Bhayshul Tuten. Jamie, this is your RB9.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
Tuten, man. What's that phrase? I don't know if you Canadians know this, but you're darn tootin'. This guy is a super athlete.
Yeah, the Raz was the most impressive part of his profile, I would admit.
Yeah,
9.35.
He ran a 4.32, which puts him in the 100th percentile at running back this year. His speed score was in the 98th percentile. His burst was in the 97th percentile. What else do you need? Like, when I see this guy play, I keep hearing that Rick James song playing in my head. What's it called? Super Freak.
Love that bass line.
Yes. He had.
Apparently, so did MC Hammer.
Anyway, Tuten, this dude, he had a 266-yard rushing game. He actually left Virginia Tech with 2 single-game rushing records, and that was one of them. Talk about like a home run hitter that we mentioned earlier. This guy is a big play threat. Like, he knows how to read defenses very well. Like, he'll hit that hole quickly. He has that tremendous long speed. No one can catch up to him. He's got great hands. He's effective in the passing game, effective on the goal line even. Like, the way Tuten runs, he makes it look so easy, like you're playing Madden on rookie mode. Like, he'll turn nothing into something, creating those positive gains that's supposed to be like a negative play. Like, with the right landing spot, he'll be right around. I want to put him right around that RB30 overall in my dynasty rankings. His profile, I see comps to CJ Spiller, Jamal Charles, but I also see Elijah Mitchell and Pierre Strong. So if I can get something
Balanced comparisons. Like,
yeah, if I can get
pretty
something
lofty,
balanced,
you go Jamal
like,
Charles and then all the way down to Pierre Strong. That's
exactly.
quite
So
a
like,
range.
give me something in between, and this dude's going to be a
Big
great
target
value.
to hit. You'll probably hit that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like today, in a rookie mock draft I did, he went at the 310, late 3rd round. Like, give me that upside all day at that spot. I am not going to let him pass that late 3rd. I will trade next year's 3rd and 4th, whatever I got to do to get him. I want to put him on it because he does have that profile upside of a CJ Spiller, Jamal Charles, but will probably end up more in the middle between Elijah Mitchell and Pierre Strong type. But everything that I said, I want this guy on my team.
Rahul, do you want to say anything about Tuten or get to your final play?
Yeah, I'll just say he did lead this class in speed score at 118. Little bit of a concern for me about the size. Whether this is even a back that would see 10 plus touches on a regular basis, I think more my concern. Does have a big fumbling issue as well. But, for me to leave him off the RB, my top 10 RBs, he's right there at 10, 11, 12. There's probably a little more hype from elsewhere than I do have on him, but probably the biggest winner of the combine, I would say, from what he put out there.
And then say this is almost the opposite. Number 14, Jordan James. Rahul just made the cut for you at number 10 in your RB.
Yeah. So I definitely could have gone with an RJ Harvey, a Sampson, a Tuten, but I did want to make sure we talked about Jordan James before we got out of here. I really liked what I saw from this guy, and I don't want to make the very simple comp to Bucky Irving, but I really saw a lot of Irving's game in Jordan James as well. Similar is stature, not the same level of elusiveness and burst, but maybe a little bit more tough in contact. He was absolutely a touchdown monster. I just think there's a lot to like, and he does have some fans who are highly respected in at least the NFL draft community. Dane Brugler had him as a top 70 player. Lance Zierlein had him as the RB6 or 7 in his ranking. So there are some fans for Jordan James. So I did just want to make sure we talked about him. He's a little bit on the smaller end. I think 5'9", 205. But I think for that size, he played with a lot of ferocity. And
I thought he was heavier than that, maybe 210.
No, yeah. I thought so too. Yeah, 205 is what he weighed at the combine at least. 205, 455. So again, concerns about like, is he going to be anything more than Kenneth Gainwell at the next level? I don't know, but I did want to make sure we talked about Jordan James before we got.
Yeah, I could see this guy going late, maybe 6th round of the draft, 5th round if he's lucky. Kind of like how we viewed Sean Tucker when he came out. You know, we might have to sit on him for a year or two to get maybe 1 or 2 good games until he does show what he could do in the NFL. But I've seen him going late 4th round. I am not taking wide receivers late 4th round. Give me running backs Jordan James all day. And I'm not one to put running backs on my taxi squad, but this is a type of guy that I would look to get late in rookie drafts in the 4th and just stash him on my taxi squad, see what happens.
One thing I'll say about Jordan James, his footwork score is the 2nd best in the class. So like right away, like when I'm watching it, like, oh man, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
And then like every step of the way, he's falling further. The other metrics aren't great. His fluidity score is 19th out of the 19 film grades I have. So literally last in the class.
He's very choppy. You could tell he's almost like too jerky and like sudden.
And I find he does run upright as well. So his pad level's pretty high. So I thought there was a lot of his contact balance score isn't great as well, but maybe I'm wondering is it just because his running technique isn't great? Like if he was using proper pad level, would he be able to sustain through contact better? Maybe. The production's actually pretty close to Tuten, and in terms of scrimmage yards per season, they both have over a 25 catch season in their career, but under 30. So really similar. And then the relative athletic scores just completely diverge on Tuten and Jordan James. I think of all the players we've talked about, James has the lowest RAS score at 6.04. So definitely could call him a combine faller, and not quite falling out of the top 10 for Rahul and not completely falling out of the show. And before we go into our final segment, Jamie, as a Canadian, apparently you totally understand JD's question here, right? He says, "Comment ça va, les boys?"
Well, I only identify as Canadian. I'm not true blood Canadian.
Okay.
So no, I don't understand that.
He's just asking how it's going, and it's going pretty great. We've been going an hour and a half here on rookie running backs, and it's about to get even better. It's time for the final segment of the show, the trade of the week. Cool. You brought to our attention maybe a couple weeks ago. I guess 3 weeks ago before you went on vacation. And when I saw this trade, I thought this would be perfect to kick off rookie season because it deals with potentially 2 picks that could translate to 2 of the players we talked about tonight. So first off, it's a 12-team Superflex league, start 9. I assumed PPR and no tight end premium on top of that because that wasn't specified. So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I can edit things.
It's sorry to not specify. It's actually a half PPR, no tight end premium.
Half PPR. Okay.
Yeah.
I think for the purposes of the pick, so that doesn't change it because I think we're expecting running backs. But I had to wear the Packers hat for a reason because we're talking about a Packers player here, the only player in the trade. On one side, we have Romeo Doubs, but he's with the 101 and the 301 in the rookie draft this year. On the other side, all that for 102, 109, 209, and 402. So it's a 3 for 4 with 1 player, 2 picks on one side, 4 picks on the other. So again, Romeo Doubs, the 101 and 301 for 102, 109, 209, and 402. Now, Jamie, do you want to just give your thoughts? Or do you want to have Rahul add context?
Rahul, you go first. Let me get all these. I'm trying to put players of these picks.
Yeah. The 101 and 102 were the actual picks of the teams involved. So that is to say, they were the 2 worst teams in the league last year. the team that traded up to the 101 has a very questionable QB situation. So it was a bit of an eye raiser when they chose to give up the capital. Obviously 102. Maybe Cam Ward could have gone there, especially if he lands as the 101 the NFL draft. But giving up again the 109 as well for what will be Ashton Jeanty at the 101, maybe raised a few eyebrows, like I just said. But in a vacuum, at least, I thought this trade was pretty interesting. I would almost put Romeo Doubs in 301 for 209 and 402 as its own fair enough trade, maybe at the margins. Our resident Packers fan may have a different opinion on that, but at least for me, the part to assess is 109, worth that move up or worth that move down from just 101 to 102. So I'm curious to turn it on to you guys at that point.
I guess my first quick thought is, are we earmarking the 101 as Ashton Jeanty automatically?
It will be. It will be Ashton Jeanty, yeah.
With this class, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to say Omarion Hampton might be the 102. So from that team tree, you might still be getting that running back. So really, honestly, I thought we'd come to this anyway in this trade. So I purposely didn't ask when we were talking about Jeanty and Hampton earlier, what was the difference between the two? Because I think this trade might almost be a perfect example. Yeah. Is that extra first? Is that 109 worth the difference between Hampton and Jeanty? Because I think you broke it down well. I would agree that Doubs and the 301 for 209 and 402, that seems pretty fair. You get, the floor of certainty if you know what Doubs is. He's a starting wide receiver on an NFL team. Looks like he's succeeding through his rookie contract. Yeah, he was a fourth-round receiver, but he's outproduced that. So the picks, while there's the flexibility of the picks, might not be the players you're picking at those spots. If you are forced to pick, you might struggle to get a player that good of a baseline. So on the one side, it's Doubs, a sure thing with some flexibility in the 301 versus two flexible assets in the pick. So then it's what's your angle? What are you going for? If you're just sticking and drafting, I'd say I'd easily want Romeo Doubs in the 301. But the 209 could be a flexible piece that you could use to trade. And it's not even just about a rookie you're selecting. It could be the trade. So that's why I think that's actually pretty fair, Rahul, to just break it down like that and say that's pretty. So then, yeah, I think is the difference between Hampton and Jeanty the 109? I think that's definitely a fair question here.
And actually, I just want to add a little bit more context. Sure. The team that moved from the 101 to the 102 is quite simply empty at the running back position. There wasn't an RB point scored on the team until week 14. If anything, the RB points on the team was negative for a good amount of the season because Dylan Lobby was on the team and he fumbled at his first ever NFL touch. And then he had Kendry Miller on the IR and he finally got put in. It was like the really small Ravens running back was injured for half the season. I don't even know if he got a touch.
Keaton Mitchell,
yeah. So that is to say, no running backs on the team. Still felt okay moving down from Jeanty to Hampton plus the 109. And
that could be another running back if they don't need a quarterback and they feel like I'm getting two running backs here. I'm getting a Judkins or a Henderson or heck, maybe Devin Neal gets capital and we want him at the 109. Maybe.
Yeah, which in a start nine, the start nine is a little bit interesting. I mean, I think if you're going to if Hampton ends up being the 102, I think he'll probably have gotten first round draft capital for him to fall there instead of like, a Ted or a Travis Hunter or a Cam Ward. I think 102 will, projecting Hampton maybe to the Steelers, and then I'll feel pretty good of him as like a low end RB1, high end RB2. So then it's a question like, are you going to, pass up Jeanty, probably perennial like top 6 running back in fantasy just to add that other 109. I can see it both ways. I think this is a really fair trade in my opinion.
So in a vacuum, this is a fair trade. But if you look at it in my perspective, I don't want anything to do with Romeo Doubs.
I had a feeling that would come
so if you
even with Christian Watson injured and likely going to miss the season, I guess the Packers
the Packers even came out and said they don't even have a number 1 receiver. They don't have a number 2 receiver. They need to add someone. But besides that, let's just look at it this way. Like, you're moving up one spot. from Jeanty to Hampton, right?
Or down one spot.
Down one spot, but you're getting like the 109, which is going to be a great asset, and the 209, which I'm putting in my head, the 209 is going to be at worst Jalen Noel, Higgins.
If anything, if this team needs running back so much, you could almost say that's maybe 3 running backs.
Harvey,
109,
Yeah.
209. Like the depth of this class, you should probably be comfortable.
3
with
running backs. I mean, you can get Ibuka maybe at 109 if he falls.
That would be
awesome.
That'd be a steal.
So
I mean, is there a first round quarterback that shows up there that you even if you don't necessarily
I would consider Jackson Dart at the
if you don't need a quarterback, you take him and then you trade him after the draft too. So
yeah, because Jackson Dart is gonna hold value if he gets that first round draft capital like we all expect. But just putting names to these guys like Hampton, let's say Dart or Ibuka, and then you get Jalen Higgins or Noel or even RJ Harvey, someone that we talked about earlier in the show at 209. I'm taking that Hampton 109, 209 side every single day because I don't like Romeo Dubes. I don't even think I would give up a mid-third for the guy. So basically you're getting a mid-third, an early third, just to move up one spot, but you're giving up the 109 and 209.
Well, and to your point, if you view it like that, where the 209 is clearly above Dubs, that other side is getting the second, third, and fourth best pieces of the trade. And typically, what you'll see is the whatever side is the best piece, the other side will usually have the second.
Well,
and third and that's
looking
usually
at this
what makes
trade,
a balanced trade. So once the other side gets the fourth best piece,
I even took out the 402. Because that's a flyer. We don't know what that's going to be. It could be nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a 4 for 3. But yeah, when that fourth piece at the 402 is the least valuable, doesn't mean it doesn't serve purpose.
And like I said earlier, there could be a world where Hampton gets drafted to a better team where he outproduces Jeanty.
Yeah. Even if the capital, Jeanty goes earlier, is the landing spot that much better with Hampton on a better offense that's more productive? It could definitely be a case. And I guess as we spoke about, all of us having him as the RB2. Again, if you were telling me this without me adding the production, I think there's enough of a difference between. I guess I wouldn't view Hampton as the 102, so I might view this trade differently. Like, okay, you really are having a quarterback, right? But because you add the production in there and how productive Hampton was in college, highest scrimmage yards per season of any running back I've evaluated, then that does, I think I agree with you, Jamie. And even in spite of the Packers fandom with Romeo Doubs, I'm gonna go with your side and say I think I would take the extra first there. Give me the 109 and 102.
100%.
So let me ask you guys, not to make this my own personal consulting session. I'm in a league where I'm sitting at the 103. Jonathan Brooks was the only running back I had, worth a damn on my roster. I have the 112, 203, 204, like many a second, but the 112 is my other, top first round pick. What would be palatable to give up to move up from 103 to 101 to add Jeanty?
Well, based on this trade, the 112 might not be enough to get it done. So,
yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have that's part of the trade. Like you're probably giving up the 3 and the 12, and I don't know. You probably maybe it's more than picks. Do you give up an established player? If you can somehow throw Jonathan Brooks and he adds any value to this trade whatsoever, you do that. But I don't know that he adds much. But
there's a situation where 103 that you have, right? That could be Hampton because someone could take Ward. I've seen
someone
people
might love a receiver.
McMillan. I've seen people go McMillan 102. It depends on your draft. But if you were going to move up those 2 spots, I think the 110 to 112, that would be a adequate pick to move up 2 spots.
I'd probably give it up with not too much concern. I'd probably give up the 112, but
It
might
feels
not
like
be
you're going to
enough.
have to do more, though. Like,
Yeah,
I think I would too, but it feels like you're just going to have to add something else, whether it's another player,
Throw in a
combination of those seconds as well. Like, are you willing to give all your depth in this class just for
and at that point,
he might be that good that you might be willing to because it's Jeanty.
Yeah. And at that point, when, like I said, Jonathan Brooks is literally the only running back I had, it might be better to take shots at Hampton and Neal and 112 and RJ Harvey clearly with one of those seconds.
So in your situation, what I would do is I would wait till they're on the clock. Jeanty goes 101. See who goes 102, because if Hampton does fall to you at 103, I'd be happy just to take Hampton and not have to worry about it. But let's say Hampton does go 102. At 103, you're looking at Cam Ward, who a lot of people look at as maybe even the 101 of this class. You could trade back 2 or 3 spots and still get a Henderson or a Judkins, whoever you like.
Yeah.
And then you could acquire something on top of that, like an early second.
That makes sense.
So have you? I guess you're thinking about making an offer, right? I imagine you haven't sent an offer yet.
I haven't yet, mainly because then really I'm more one to act after all the information comes out. I'd probably if I knew 103 for one plus 112 gets accepted, I'd probably feel pretty comfortable with that. But yeah, like Jamie said, I might be totally fine at the 103 to get a very productive RB. So still waiting on that one.
I would say I think it's worth at least trying to send that out and see 103, 112 and add a third piece, just because whether it's a third or even your latest second or a player you're kind of trying to sell.
I would
and just see what they say, like see what that gives you, and if not, okay, I might have to add more during the rookie draft. That gives you time to kind of think of better trade or make a different trade to get you the assets you need to make that trade.
Also, when you do that, say you're going to do the 103 and 112 for the 101, throw in that guy's late third or even late fourth, just as an add-in.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Give that extra depth, which
who knows?
You're marking as running backs if you're taking third, fourth round shots in this draft, especially given your situation. You're probably any of those picks in that range. You're probably just taking a running back automatically, even if you don't love the players there, just to have those bodies. But we lasted as long as we did last episode, another hour and 47 minute. But by the time we actually had this, it will be even later. So appreciate everyone. We ran through 14 running backs and this trade of the week featuring potentially Jeanty and Hampton, but the 101 and 102. And as JD, the Draft Room Ballers mentioning, smash the like button, people. Really would appreciate that. Subscribing as well, whether it's on YouTube or subscribing to your audio podcast platforms. Appreciate that. It allows us to grow the Fantasy Six Pack brand. There's the fantasy6pack.com. There's a Fantasy Six Pack Discord. So much going on with Fantasy Six Pack. I'm proud to be part of it. Proud to be here hosting Dynasty Six Pack along with JB and Rahul. Love this episode, guys. Hope we did great.
Yeah, that was good fun. And honestly, again, one that's very informative to myself. I think I have my homework to do about a couple of guys that I left off my list, but featured prominently on both of yours.
Yeah, this wraps up our breakdown of our rookie running backs. Like, stay tuned for more analysis in the future. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. Also, I'd like to add, are you ready to dominate your fantasy league? Fast Draft brings you the quickest, most competitive drafts with real-time strategy and zero wait time. Sign up now to get ahead of your competition. Use the code HUNTER to get up to a $50 deposit match on Fast Draft. And join us for the Rookie Origins. We're trying to push the Origins, man. Draft only the rookies.
Okay, interesting. Rookie only drafts. I guess last year that would have maybe not seemed as fun before the season, but then that would have been incredible because there were actually some good rookies. Maybe not so the running backs so much, but I guess we'll have more fun drafting running backs this year. But even though this was this is the end of this episode. It's just the start of rookie draft season here, and rookie season, and we'll be back with another position next week. So tune in again. Follow us at Senra Says, at Small Talk FF, at Jamie Perog. Interact with us at follow the Fantasy Six Pack account as well, at Fantasy Six Pack, and we'll be back again next week talking rookies, answering all your Dynasty Fantasy Football questions. Really just having a great time here. So on behalf of Jamie, Rahul, appreciate talking with both of you. Appreciate all the listeners, followers, anyone who's interacted with us. And we say good night. We'll see you next time on the Dynasty Six Pack.